morning, everybody. It's Thursday, the 9th of July. Welcome to Conversations with Thought Leaders as we begin lockdown Mark 2 in Melbourne today, as of 11:59 last night. So I hope everyone's well this morning. Thank you for joining us. So my name is David Webley. I am the founder and managing director of Granite Consulting. I'm also the co-founder of Conversations with Thought Leaders, which is a platform we've created to connect our community with amazing leadership from across the globe. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Ayten Ozenc. Ayten, good morning.
Good morning, Dave.
How are you today?
Good morning, everyone. I'm well, thank you.
Great.
How are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic, thanks. So by way, before we start today, by way of a brief bio on Ayten for those that don't know Ayten. So Ayten is the Executive General Manager of Delivery and Engineering at the Toll Group, which is part of Japan Post, one of the world's leading and most sizable supply chain logistics organisations, and very much an essential service, particularly in the times of COVID-19. Prior to this current role at Toll, Ayten has had numerous leadership roles with well-known organisations such as BHP and Australia Post, leading some of Asia Pacific's largest and most critical business transformations. On top of that, Ayten's the Deputy Chair for Vic ICT for Women, passionate about helping women in STEM and addressing these issues in society. And on top of that, I also believe you're doing your Masters on Leadership at the moment in your spare time.
I certainly am, yes.
There's certainly plenty to keep you busy there. And I would imagine that given what's been happening, there'd be a lot of increased demand on a lot of the services Toll provides as a logistics business, given that we're all ordering more and more stuff's being delivered around the world. So how have you adapted to that? And has that led to perhaps a change in, skew and direction in terms of project priorities and some of the things you're focusing on?
Well, what's interesting is the demand from our business in terms of our workforce who are in the front line. So, we do medical supplies type work, which is absolutely flourishing. But I don't remember the last time I was in a shopping centre. So work that we do in fashion, and we're one of the largest suppliers in that space, and we've got some really innovative operations services that we offer for some of the really high-end design houses here in Australia, where it's not so much. When have you walked into David Jones or one of those types of places, and everything we do is now remote. So those parts of our business are seeing change, but other parts are flourishing. So the overarching business context is no different to any other. Our priorities are our priorities. We set our capital plan last year coming into this financial year, and we've pretty much held to that. There have been some things that have happened that have jumped ahead in terms of, safety, security, those sort of things. But we've held to the plan. So the business knows the trajectory it wants to head in, and we're pretty much constantly reviewing, but we're sticking to the plan so far.
And have you had to review governance and, how you deliver some of your projects and programs? What's your view around how that may have changed?
It's changed completely, to be honest. We have, this past weekend, had our first project that has been completely hands-off. So from inception to execution, a major grocery chain in New Zealand, and it's a warehousing solution. And it was delivered by Prakash in my team in Pune, totally hands-off. So governed remotely, delivered remotely. The team that built the solution are based in India, the US, and Australia, and the customer is in New Zealand. And we went live, and touch wood, we're still in hypercare, but so far so good. but everything is, a project like that would normally have us work with the customer, understand the customer's needs on the ground, observe the operations, you know, a whole plethora of things that we would normally do, all happened remotely. It happened, and it happened in a very, very compressed time frame. So how we govern, how we work, how we mobilize, I think all of that has changed. It has changed for us. You know, at the top level, our board is our board. Our project governance board has not changed. That's still there. It's chaired by our MD. So at a practical level, you know, not a lot changes. Board, audit, everything kind of works, but our audit interviews are all via video. Everything is now, for us, it's either Blue Jeans or Teams, but that's how we work.
Do you think boards have had as successful as adjustments in the pandemic as maybe some of the pure technology teams? Because talking to, you know, various CEOs, then there really is a mixed response that some boards have struggled with remote board meetings and others have really embraced it. But
it's been good. We're a very, very structured business. We're owned by Japan Post, and those of you that have experienced working with Japanese businesses would know, highly structured, and we have pivoted to remote working and using the technology available to us really, really effectively. And our organisation set up a critical response team, and we had one. We mobilised our critical response team, and that team has you know, invoked our business continuity planning as well as all of our resource planning, and it is operations as usual for us. So, and the board has, I'm sure everyone likes to be able to see each other in person, but we've pivoted and we've adjusted. You know, our MD sends us videos from his lounge room, and I think that personal touch, the informality, I think helps connect with people as well.
And I know you're doing your Masters on Leadership, and you were mentioning to me that your thesis is going to be on building change and creating change in organisations that are change resistant. So I guess I'd be interested to, perhaps you could share some of your thinking and reasoning in terms of why you went down that path with it, but then also frame it into, we've all had to change so radically, so quickly. So will that lead to a greater propensity for organisations to change quicker in the future?
Thank you. Well, I feel like I can breathe now. So to bore everyone to tears, my proposal for my thesis was due on Monday, and to say that I was freaking out is probably an understatement. Anyway, it is in, and now I wait, and the waiting stuff continues. But for me, leadership is a topic that I have been fascinated by, and people, their motivations is something that I have accidentally studied over many, many years. And in every organisation I join, and it's certainly not unique to Toll, I do large-scale transformational work. So the reality is I'm going to be at the pointy end of whatever resistance is coming. It doesn't matter how much people support transformation. The reality is there is a human impact. There is the loss of status for some, loss of power and control. And what really fascinates me is that how do people actually connect? What motivates them? Why do they react the way they react, and why do they resist change? And I think if you can understand that through research and crystallize what the issues are and how you might actually address them, I think it will go a long way towards helping people accept change more readily. I've yet to work in a single organisation in a 30-year career where they've embraced change. Everyone says they embrace change, they love change. The reality of my personal experience, not a reflection on anyone else, is that's not the case.
Yeah, I think, the other thing, I guess, is, people talk about lining up values of organisations with values of individuals. But then when you're doing that for many thousands of people, it obviously gets more complicated, more time consuming to do. But do you think if you can get a values alignment with the teams, then you're likely to be able to drive change? Because I do agree with you, humans are creatures of habits. We all like the idea of being ultra flexible, changing, moving. But when it comes down to, you say, well, actually, that means your job has now got to move from A to B. People quite often say, I didn't realise that would happen. I didn't realise that meant I'd have to do that. It's sort of, but maybe the values and speaking to a person's highest values might.
Look, I think it is critical. It's one of the things that I look for when I take on roles. For me, it's as important as the value. Well, one of the most important factors is the values of the leader that I'll be reporting to, understanding them, understanding what drives them, their motivators. So they're very open, transparent conversations, because by the time you get to that part of the conversation, it's the difference between whether you accept a role or not. And I know we have a pandemic and the marketplace is what it is, but these times will pass and we all have options. The reality is organisations need us as much as we need organisations.
I'd like to move on as well to talking a bit about the work you do for the ICT for Women, Vic ICT. Could we maybe start? Could you tell us a bit about the Vic ICT and what your mission is there?
So our mission is to connect and create opportunity and awareness and the ability to then be able to support women through their careers.
Marcelo Menez says he'd love to hear from Ayten about challenges, if there are any, around digital transformation, specifically perhaps around the different mindsets and processes between traditional corporate funding and the requirements of digital transformation in perhaps a faster, agile, lean environment, and how that can be accounted for and budgeted for.
It's a really interesting question, and how you fund, in order to be truly agile in a large corporate organisation, the shackles of the CapEx planning process for any large corporate do not engender agility and speed. That's the truth. Organisations can have rituals of agile, but true agility in how you actually build your long-running team and how they work together, how you govern, is vastly different. And I think the work that we did at Australia Post in this space, Alison Harrop was our CFO, and I remember going to Alison with an idea where we wanted to establish a long-running team that didn't fall off a cliff at the end of the CapEx. So the first, and we put our business case together, I pitched it, and it effectively, a little bit of trust is what you need from the company. But Alison, being who she is, our CFO being at the time, she said, you put up the first $500,000 out of your operating budget, and if you deliver what you said you would, and this new way of running projects is actually going to cut it, I'll give you your money back and I'll give you some more. I couldn't have asked for more. And my boss at the time, Andrew, was tremendously supportive and believed in this way of working. So through getting, and the keys to the kingdom, and no one would actually think it's finance, but the reality is IT people can adapt, we can be agile, we can cut code, we can do just about anything we want to do with software and our ways of working and change ourselves. What we need to change is not IT. What we need to change is what sits around us, understanding the governance structure of the organisation and going to the people who actually governance is one of the keys.
Caroline Steinkamp says, as a transformation leader myself, I'd love to hear some of the techniques you've used to overcome resistance to change. And maybe we can frame that as a takeaway for everyone, because we all work in organisations where some people are easier to deal with than others. I mean, that's a factor of life, not just business. What advice can you give to help overcome some of the barriers that people naturally put up?
A lot of this is actually drawn from fear of loss, fear of control, lack of understanding. People resist the change that they don't understand. I think being able to communicate transparently as you can, because the reality in corporate life is there's levels of transparency and there's some things you just can't talk about, but being as transparent as you possibly can and understanding that as the person delivering the transformational change, it's not necessarily your job to have everyone buy in. People around the table own it. And I think you need to allow people to own it as well. So
we're out of time. So with that, so thank you very much, Ayten, for your time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, taking time out of your busy schedule. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Have a great day and goodbye. Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.